Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to ask you to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay. Excellent, excellent. Well, I am just now getting everybody admitted into the Zoom meeting, so bear with me for just a second while I kind of check the participant list. We are going to be recording our presentation today so that we can make it available on our website. Um, Probably have the slides and the video available on the website early next week. And so just kind of let you know how we're going to conduct this today. Um, I would ask that you go ahead and if you have questions along the way, to leave them in our chat. With approximately 40 people joining today, it's going to be difficult to do a live question and answer session. So go ahead and put any questions you have along the way in the chat. If you can kind of keep them directed towards the slides at hand, that would be really helpful to us. Um, and so I'm assuming that everyone can see the screen that I'm sharing that says 2025 Community Grant Program Workshop. And if you can give me a thumbs up that you can see my screen okay, that would be excellent. Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn my phone off so that I don't get disturbed, and we'll proceed. First off, this workshop is about our community grant program for this year. There are a few updates, so we like to take this opportunity to make sure everybody's up to speed with how we're conducting the program this year. My name's Kent Embry. I'm the program officer here with the Community Foundation. I'd also like to introduce who's on the call, Bailey Dusterhouse. Wave, Bailey. There you go. Bailey is our new program manager. She's been on since about June of last year, and she and I make up the program department now. We're the only department or segment of the Community Foundation that actually has two people working in its area. So we're an official department now. And if you have questions as you're working through an application or anything that you're doing this year, please feel free to reach out to either Bailey or myself. Um, I'm going to apologize up front. I don't do tons of Zoom webinars, so bear with me if I am having trouble like turning on a setting or on or off or anything like that. But we'll get through it. And just so you know, the information is all available, on our website, or you can always call me too if you have questions. Um, I am the main coordinator for our grant making processes, and I focus mostly on our capacity building efforts for nonprofit organizations. This is just one of several programs that we do operate here at the Community Foundation. For our agenda for this call, today we'll be discussing several topics related to the Community Grants Program. We'll do a brief overview of the foundation, the key elements and priorities of this particular program, and the information you'll need to gather to put together an application. Then we'll take a look at our online grant portal, show you how to apply and access the application draft you're working on, and finally, how to access the report forms for grants you may be awarded from within our system. I'm going to do my best to spend as much time actually in the application as possible towards the end of the presentation. That way you can actually see it if you have not applied through this program before. A little bit about the Community Foundation. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization, just like many of you are. We gather, grow, and grant charitable resources in and for our region. We were established in 1997, and we've been granting since 1999, currently through more than 230 different charitable funds. Most of those are endowed. We gather donations, which include both money and other assets, to build these charitable funds, and we focus mainly on building permanent endowments. These donations may come from individuals, families, businesses, or even other organizations. Many of you on the call may even have a fund with us through your own agency. We grow the funds through investments with the advice of and management of trusted local financial advisors. And then we make grants through programs supporting the pillars which make our communities vibrant: arts and culture, education, youth development, health, human services, and general community betterment. Through all of our different funds and programs to date, including our donor advised funds, more than $32 million has been distributed throughout our region and beyond. To give you a little bit of information about the types of funds that we have that feed this program, there are three kinds. This program, the community grant program, is supported by a number of different types, and these have been donated based on specific charitable intents from the donors. Those that are most applicable to requests for this program are either specified for a particular field of interest, and that could be anything along the lines of what I just mentioned: health, the arts, human services, things like that. They could even be more specific, or they are specific to a particular geographic area, like one of the counties that we serve. Or we also support this program with unrestricted endowments, and those are endowments that help us to fill in the gaps, making more grants accessible to a wide variety of organizations. I'll talk a little bit about our service area. We do service 12 counties. Generally, we service counties within a 50-mile radius of our headquarters in Quincy, Illinois. In order to be eligible for a community grant, your organization has to serve those in one or more of this 12 counties service area. But this doesn't mean that your organization has to be headquartered or based there. But a priority for this program is to grant to those organizations that are either physically located in one of these counties or have demonstrated active services to residents in these counties. Additionally, the counties you see with stars over them have set up county endowment funds to support community grants and other requests specific to those counties. There are three main types of organizations that the Community Foundation can grant to. And those include nonprofit organizations with 501c3 tax status, units of government, or faith-based organizations. There's one other type of scenario where you may have or be an organization that does not have its 501c3 status. And if that is the case, it is possible for you to be eligible for a grant from this program if you are using a fiscal sponsor. So that would mean that you have a formal relationship with another 501c3 nonprofit that is willing to take on the financial responsibility of accepting grant monies. So that does require some different documentation. And so if you're interested in that type of application, feel free to reach out to me and let me know. I can kind of steer you as to what's required, and I'll go over a little bit of that in this presentation also. We want to mention that all requests, regardless of the type of organization that you are, must be for public charitable purposes. And if you are a faith-based organization, your project may not require participation in a religious activity in order to obtain services from your program or project. And the reason why this is because of our tax status with the IRS. So all the monies that have been donated to our endowments have already received tax benefits. And so the grants that we make must also go to organizations that are considered exempt or have the 501c3 tax status with the federal government. So that does affect certain faith-based projects, and we need to make certain that even with units of government, that all the projects that we're funding are for public and charitable purposes. Okay, the grant limits and amounts that will be available for this program this year are between $1,000 and $7,500. We're also requiring this year, and this is new this year, only one application per organization. There will be an opportunity if you have multiple projects that you'd like to make us aware of to use a process through our Book of Opportunities catalog. And what we will do with that catalog is we will make all those requests available to our donor advisors. And we do this every year anyway, but you'll be able to do is submit a summary of your request rather than a full complete application, and we will publish that into our Book of Opportunities catalog. The other thing to note is that partial funding may also be awarded. And within your application this year, you can actually indicate if you will accept partial funding. The reason why this is important is because the funds that feed this program are specific to certain fields of interest, not enough money may be available to fund your project, even if our grant committee decides to. And so where this can be a problem is if you do not have additional sources of income to fully fund a project. And so we want to make sure that if that's not a possibility for you, that you've indicated that in your application. And that's just really helpful to our grant committee as they're going through trying to determine how to best use the budgeted money that we have for the program. I'm going to take just a quick break and check in with Bailey here and see if there's any questions. So far, looks like we're good. Okay, that's great. Okay, and moving on. Let's talk a little bit about the criteria for this program. As I mentioned, our areas of focus are arts and culture, education, youth development, health, human services, and general community betterment. So even if you have a project that is not necessarily within one of those specific categories, most requests that are charitable will generally fall under general community betterment. We are also accepting applications during this process for both specific projects and general operating support. And we can talk a little bit as we move through this, but I do want to give you a tip regarding the difference between your specific project requests and general operating support. Specific project requests are often easier for grant committee members to visualize, but you'll also be required to submit a short budget for that project. So that budget would indicate what your purchases will be for and other potential sources of income that you might have to help fund your project. If you have any questions about which type of application you want to make, feel free to reach out. I can kind of walk you through that. Bailey can also kind of walk you through that. There are certain advantages and disadvantages of applying for either of those two categories, and ultimately it's a personal decision on your part and how you want to frame your application. We have, I think it's 5 or 6 program priorities that we are focusing on this year. They're similar to last year, but they're slightly more refined. So I want to make sure that everyone is understanding the priorities that we are establishing with our grant reviewers as they take a look at your applications. The first one is we are looking for requests that help you respond to clearly defined needs or opportunities in our area. So you can use whatever data that you have at your disposal to help describe the need in your application narrative. But we're looking for something that is a defined need or opportunity within this community that we serve. Second, we're looking for organizations that are collaborating together, complementing each other's resources to complete more robust projects and increasing the impact that you can make together. So if you're working with another organization, either to help fund or carry out your program, that is a really strong point to make in your application. And we actually have an application question that allows you to describe any collaborations that you have going on. Now, what we are looking for in terms of collaboration is our things that you're working with others on just for this specific project. So a lot of times people will apply and list all the collaborations they have, you know, organizationally. That's not really what we're looking for. We're looking for this specific project, those collaborations pertaining to this specific project. Our third program priority is we hope that your project or program will impact a significant number of people. If you're reaching specific underserved populations, that's also a consideration that you would want to emphasize. Fourth, we're looking to support organizations that are either physically located in our service area or have existing demonstrated services that directly benefit residents within our service area. So this is something that we haven't always emphasized as a priority. We're kind of dialing this in this year, so it's something to be aware of. Oftentimes we'll have organizations that are outside of our area that would like to provide services within this area. And that sometimes those terms are only if they receive a grant from us. That's not really what we're looking for this program. We're looking to support existing demonstrated services. And finally, we want you to be successful. That's our ultimate goal. When you're successful, we're successful. And so we're most likely to make grants that impact the success of your project. So when you frame your request, you should consider the size of our grants compared to the total project budget. For example, if this grant is only a drop in that bucket, we wouldn't consider our grant to be significantly impactful. And so you need to really consider that these grants being maxed out at $7,500 are a little bit different than if you were applying for a $50,000 or a $500,000 grant. You know, those are different scenarios, different levels of scale. And we want to make grants that are impactful to your success. Let's take a look at the key program dates this year. As most of you are aware, the program opened on March 1st, so we began accepting applications online on March 1st. And then we also offer courtesy application reviews. So when you put together a draft of your application before you submit it, you can schedule a review with me or Bailey, and we will go over via Zoom with you with your application and kind of help you if you have any questions or concerns about different questions that are in the application. So it's important to know that if you want to do that, and we do recommend having those reviews, to go ahead and schedule a review by April 11th. Those slots are limited and they do book up. So it's very difficult at the very last minute, as we all tend to do, to wait until the very last second. And it's very difficult for us to schedule in time because we're already allowing, you know, certain blocks of time. There's only so many hours in the day. So highly recommend that you get a review scheduled by April 11th. And then it's also really important, if you're going to use that time, to have a complete draft filled out of your application. If you just have a one-off question, I can answer those questions over email or over the phone. That's no problem. But if you don't have information already filled out in your application, it's difficult for me to give you advice on how, you know, how that impacts the strength of your application. So go ahead and make sure you have a draft filled out, and then if you schedule some time to review it, we'll go over all the answers on your questions. Then, of course, the application due date is a hard deadline, and that's May 1st at 11:59. So make sure you have that deadline on your calendar. Make sure also that you have clicked the submit button on your application by that time. Sometimes we tend to think we've saved off the application and it's complete, but it's not actually submitted until you click that submit button. Then you'll be notified in early August whether or not your grant has been approved. And then we also schedule a presentation ceremony mid-August. So about usually around August 15th, but whatever works well for our venue. But we highly recommend people to take part in that if you're receiving a grant. This is a great PR opportunity for you. It's a great chance to take photos, share on your social media, help get the word out about what your organization does. I'm going to just take a brief second to look at our chat. And I need to have Bailey unmute here. Bailey, it looks like you're answering some of the questions. Are there any questions that you want to bring to the forefront here that I can help with?
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Great. There was one question about if there's a priority population that for this year's grant cycle. I don't know if you want to explain more so that we look at applications as a whole, so we can make the most impact. Do you have anything to add to that at all?
We take into consideration the data that you have, in terms of whether or not a population segment is a high priority for the region. So, if you present something to us in that area, and we will probably do a little bit of research on our own just to verify what you provided. But there's nothing specific in terms of our vision for the program or our mission that is related to one segment of the population or another. I think what you've listed there, it's like elderly, disabled, low income. Those are all legitimate concerns in populations. So, but there's nothing like specific that we hone in on. There's no one single population that we hone in on. Ultimately, I think our program is focused on charitable purposes. So, any of those are very legitimate concerns and very legitimate populations to address.
There is a question about the final report from last year, and we will talk about that a little later. And Kent will provide that example. Jane, I just didn't want you to think I was ignoring you. I got that question, but we'll discuss it.
Okay, as Bailey mentioned, we'll definitely talk about those report deadlines. Um, just, to quickly answer that question, the if you will be applying for a grant in the 2026 cycle, your report from this program would be due by June 1st. So if you received a grant in 2024, that would also be due by June 1st. If you're applying for the 2025 cycle, it gets really kind of complex, but basically what we ask for is for any previous grants you received through this program to be reported on by June 1st, and that gives us enough time to make sure that you are eligible for the current program that we're awarding. If you're not applying for the current cycle and you received a grant in the previous cycle, you'd have an additional 60 days. That should give you almost exactly a full year to report on grants that you might have received.
And Kent, they will get reminders by email for due dates as well. So that's something to add that we won't, this won't be like a shock or anything. You guys should be. And if you're not getting emails from us, please let us know as we may need to update your email.
Exactly. And we do have automated emails that go out
Mhm.
2 weeks before a grant report is due. And then we'll also send a follow-up if we don't receive a report within 2 weeks after that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and keep moving. Feel free to leave additional questions in the chat and we'll address them as we go along here. Talk just a little bit about the application and do an overview of the kind of information that you're going to need once you start putting that together, or even before you start putting it together. Bear in mind, after I get through this section, we will actually go into the applications online and I will share with you step by step how to get into those. I will open up each of the groups of questions that are within the application, so you'll see it firsthand here in the presentation. Summary information. You're going to have your organizational information, your contact information as you set up a profile in the system. That will also include the EIN number for your organization. If you have not ever set up a profile with us before, the EIN number is what gives us access to your charitable status, as well as your 990 that should be publicly available for your tax return. And then you should also consider the title of your application. One of the things that, and I'll get into this, one of the things that's really useful to us is if you title your application specifically towards what you are looking to fund. What is your request? Which community foundation focus area fits? And then what is the geographical area? I would also recommend that you use an email address when you're setting up your profile that you check regularly. We have had instances where people have changed their email address in the middle of this process, and if you do that, you will not receive notifications from us. So be sure to use an email address that you know that you're going to check throughout the duration of the length of this program. You'll also be able to create a short summary of your request that would include the geographic area served, and that will help in creating a listing for you in the book of opportunities that I mentioned before. You want to look at the community need or opportunity. Describe what need you're addressing with your project and what population that you're serving. You'll need to consider what your plan is for execution of the grant, including timing, collaborations, and who will be responsible. Are the people that are going to be responsible staff members of your organization, or are they going to be volunteers? Who's going to carry out these activities? Having these things well thought out ahead of time is definitely going to strengthen your application and make it quicker to fill out. Think about the goals that you have and how you'll measure your success. How will you be meeting your goals? Knowing this up front will also help you fill out your final report if a grant is awarded, because you'll be able to go in and say, well, we had the impact that we were looking for when we first applied. Are there any key metrics that you're going to track? Having those metrics, like how many people you intend to serve with the grant, how much it will be different for every organization on what you're going to track, and it's going to be specific to the project you're trying to carry out. So if you're a food pantry, maybe how many families you're going to serve, or how much food that you're going to give out. Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth at this point, but each of you will have a different type of goal for your application. And so coming up with some metrics and some data is always helpful. And then this is the one that can be difficult for smaller organizations in particular, but sometimes just knowing what we're looking for can help get you in the right direction. This is an important section of the application that requires you to submit some key financial information for your organization. You should have a current year operating budget for 2025. If you're governed by a board of directors, this should be a document that they have approved. You'll also need your most recent end of year financial statement. And if you're required by your state to conduct an audit, in Illinois, I think this is particularly pertinent, you should provide a full copy of your audit. And also mentioning specific project requests. we're also going to require you to have a small budget for that project. And so that should be submitted, and that will help our grant committee zone in on exactly what expenses that you're going to be addressing with that project. Oh, I also want to mention that there are links to templates for budget that are provided within the application. So in the application instructions, if there's a question that asks for that project budget, there's a link in the application that you can click on and download a simple standard budget template. We do ask that you use those, and the reason why is because it helps our grant committee look at the same information in a standardized format. However, if you've already put together, your organizational budget or your project budget on a separate document, we certainly don't want to create any extra work for you, and it's okay to upload whatever document that you might have already created. Okay, now we're getting into the nitty-gritty on how to actually apply. I have some slides here that are screenshots of the system. I'll quickly go through those, but if you can't read them or I go too fast, bear in mind I am going to switch over to the web here in just a minute, and I'll be able to show you exactly what you'll see when you log in. So the first thing I want to recommend is going to the website, mycommunityfoundation.org. You'll go to the nonprofits section that has the community grants program in it. And here's where you can download all the resources for this program. The program description is particularly important. This gets updated every single year, and there may be very small nuances that are changed about the program from year to year. And so I would highly recommend that you download the program description and read that before you formulate the answers to your questions in the application. When you get into our website, the next step, and after you've read all the information about the community grant program, in order to get into the portal itself, on every screen within our website, you'll see up at the top of the bar that says nonprofit login. This is what takes you to our grants portal. This is what the login screen looks like. You want to note that it also includes links to resources that can be really helpful about using the system. There's a complete applicant tutorial. There's an tutorial on the applicant dashboard. If you are an individual that's associated with multiple organizations, our system will now allow you to log in using a single email address, but we do need to associate that internally on the back end with multiple or with each organization that you're affiliated with. So if you're having any difficulty with that, you can always reach out to us. Probably the best way to make sure that it's set up correctly. But there's a tutorial here link that you can get in additional information from. There's also a tutorial on how to submit follow-up forms and report forms. So this is pretty handy. You can get at this even without logging into the system. So just want to make sure that you realize those are there. About to the next slide here. Just some very basic instructions here. Standard email address and password login. If you've forgotten your password, you can click the Forgot Your Password link to reset your password. I do ask that you do not create a new account if you've forgotten your email address. If you just want to make sure that your email address is associated with the right organization and you want to use a new email address for your organization, maybe just shoot us an email, give us a call. Sometimes it's better for us. Well, it's never the best scenario for us to delete out an old account because we want to make sure that that we don't delete out any historical information that we might need in the future. So maybe give us a ring if you're having trouble remembering the email address that you use to set up the account. It does cause problems if you create unnecessary new accounts in the system, because your historical information won't be attached to different email addresses, because each one will have its own history attached to it. Okay. Okay. I think at this point, rather than go through all of these, I think what I want to do is switch over to the web itself. So bear with me one second while I do that. Okay. All right. Is everybody able to see my web browser at this point? That look good? Okay, great. So here we are at our homepage for the Community Foundation website. I'm going to show you exactly where the page is for community grants. It's right here under nonprofits and community grants. This shows you the main screen, but there's quite a bit more information as you scroll down. If you're interested in seeing what other types of organizations have received grants from us in the past, we do have a list from 2024, and you can download that here. This is the link that you could use to sign up for these workshops. If anybody would like to attend in person, and you're more than welcome to, we are giving our final workshop in Palmyra tomorrow at 3 o'clock, and there is still time to sign up for that, but here is where you would register. All the additional information about the program is here. This is a link to book a Zoom appointment with me for reviewing your draft application. There are other links in the application to do that as well. And then here's where we'll post the slides from these workshops that we're doing. So if you want to go back and review the video, we'll post that here. Also, we'll just have the basic slide presentation posted here as a PDF. We'll go back up to the top, and we'll go ahead and we'll click on the nonprofit login link that takes us to that login screen. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And this screen that comes up is called either your home page or your dashboard. You can always get back to this by clicking the little house icon right here. I'm going to log in as an applicant. You will automatically be an applicant when you log in. So your screen will look like this. And one thing to always keep an eye on is this description right here. This should be the name of your organization. Okay, if it's not, then we have a problem and we need to edit your profile. Okay, and if you would like to edit your profile, you would go up under your name in the upper right corner, and there's an edit my profile link right there. This brings up all the details of your profile, and it also indicates which organization that information is associated with. So if you are an individual that's representing multiple organizations, you can switch between those organizations here. If it's not showing the way you expect it to, again, this may be a back-end configuration that we need to do on our side. So please feel free to reach out to us. I would much rather have your profile set up correctly from the start before you even start an application. So it's really really important to reach out to us if, we have all kinds of scenarios that happen. We have individuals who work for one organization, but maybe also doing some volunteer grant writing on the side. And so they are an individual that is representing more than one organization. You might even be a freelance grant writer. But we would want to make sure that we have your organization correctly identified with you as a contact before you get started with an application. You can even change your password here if you like. That's an option. And then be sure to click the save button. I've done this myself occasionally where I'm updating information and I forget to click save. But this particular database does require you to click save in order to keep that information. Then when you're ready to apply, just click this apply section right here with the little document icon, and that will take you to the screen that lists out every open application that we have at the moment. So the one that's at the top right now of the list is the Community Grants Program, and that's the one you're going to look for, 2025 Community Grants Program. And it has the dates that we're accepting the application, and it has pretty much a full description of the program here. This does not necessarily take the place of everything that's in the published document. So be sure to read through this and that document as well. You'll note that there are other opportunities in here. So you want to make sure that you click the correct apply button for the correct program that you're applying for. So make sure when you click this apply button, this will take you to the application itself, and make sure that you're doing the one that's next to the Community Grants Program. So we'll click the apply button, and the next form that comes up is the actual form application. You'll note that in the top of this application that it has all your contact information, both individually and for the organization that you're applying for. If this is not the organization that you are representing in this application, be sure and stop at this point and contact us, okay? And the reason is why it is because your profile is probably not set up correctly, and so we need to take a look at it. So this is a great opportunity to go ahead and just verify that everything is correct for the application you're going to get started with. I'm going to close up these individual groups of questions just so you can get an overview of how many sections there are in this application. There are 6 different sections. Some of them are much longer than others, but you're going to have the basic set of instructions and the program expectations. You'll have your organization and request summary. The request narrative will have several questions in it. A section for your financial information that we talked about. A section that you may or may not even need to fill out. If you are a 501c3, you do not need to fill out this section about fiscal sponsored documents. If you are interested in the relationship with a fiscal sponsor that we talked about before, this would be the area that you would need to provide documentation, okay? Otherwise, you do not need to fill it out. And then the final one is just your electronic signature. So we already looked at the instructions, program expectations. There are just a couple of things I want to make sure everyone's clear on. We are only accepting one application per organization this year. And if you have more requests that you'd like to make, we will have a separate process to provide summaries of those requests. Let's see, if you do happen to have multiple people within your organization that may apply, you probably want to have some internal dialogue and make sure that everyone understands that we are only accepting one application, because If more than one application is submitted, we're only going to look at the first that was submitted. The grant awards are between $1,000 and $7,500. You can apply for either specific projects or general operating support. Partial funding may be awarded, and you will be asked to indicate whether you'll accept a partial award or not. And then I think the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory within the instructions. Back to Jane's question about the reporting deadline. Grants awarded through this must be expended within a year. If you were applying the subsequent year, the report should be submitted by June 1st. If you're not applying for a subsequent grant, you'll have an additional 60-day grace period. This does affect your eligibility for the current grant cycle. Okay, so I have had a situation just last year where an organization, it's a typical type of problem where someone just forgot which email address that they were applying under. And what happened was we could not get connected with them over email in order to request their report from the previous year. So for some reason or another, they weren't getting the notices that the report was due. And literally on the last day of our grant committee meeting, we got a hold of them by phone and said, you've got to fill this in now. And so thankfully they were able to go ahead and submit their report at the last minute. But they would not have been eligible, and our grant committee was interested in funding their project. And so just want to make sure you keep an eye on these deadlines. You should be getting automated messages like 2 weeks before the actual due date. So in case you don't have this date on your calendar, you will get an automated message 2 weeks before. But a great way to head that off is to go ahead and log into your account right now and just look and see if any reports due are listed, because they will be listed on that home screen, on that dashboard. You'll see a list of active applications there, and it will show you a grant and report budget due. To get at that, you just click the start button on the right side and it'll take you to the report form. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and dig into the rest of the questions on the application. It's not my intent to go over these in minute detail. So if you do have questions, feel free to reach back out to me. I'm happy to answer any particular questions if I go over this part too fast. This is where you indicate whether you're applying for general operating support or project support, right there. This is where you come up with your request name. Again, I'm going to reiterate, flowery and creative names here are not particularly helpful. And the reason why is because we're looking at a large list of grants. Last year we received 142 applications, and this is the field that tells us what the application is for. So the more specific you are here in this field, the quicker the process is for everybody. So be specific. If you're asking for general operating support in this field, put general support of XYZ organization. If you're asking for a specific project funding, here my example is iPads for student STEM curriculum. Something that is specific and can dial our grant committee volunteers right into what you're asking for. Here you list the amount that you're requesting, up to $7,500. This is the field where you can choose what type of organization that you are. And you can copy and paste your mission statement right here. We ask that you self-report what focus area of interest that your request is referencing or it fits under. And then this field is also very important, the request summary. You've heard me talk about our book of opportunities. One reason why it's great to apply for this program, whether you receive a grant or not, is that we publish the summary in that book of opportunities. So we publish the summary here and then make that available to all of our donor advisors. There are a number of donors who have specific funds and they make recommendations on those. Those funds are not inherently available to this program, but those donor advisors may make recommendations from the funds that they are affiliated with. And so this opens your application up to a much broader audience, directly to people who may be interested in making a grant. I would very much recommend keeping this summary concise and clear as to what you are asking for, because this is the only information that will be published. Your entire application won't be directly published in the catalog unless a donor asks for it specifically. This is where you indicate the service area that your application will be servicing. My advice on this one is, if your organization serves every single one of these counties, I would highly recommend not just clicking all of them unless you definitely provide direct services within those counties. So many organizations will serve outside of the region that they're headquartered in. But really what we're looking for is what pertains specifically to this grant request that you're making. And then this is that field I mentioned about partial funding. So where we feel like this is going to be useful is if you don't feel like you can raise additional funds if necessary to execute your program. So we really recommend not answering yes to this if you don't feel like you can execute the program without this grant. Hopefully I said that right and didn't have any double negatives in there. But if it doesn't make sense to you, feel free to reach out. But what this does then is it does potentially free up money for other organizations, because if you can't spend this money within a year, then it basically sits there unused. And that's not the intent of our program. Okay, let's break into the request narrative. So what we've done is we've segmented out different areas of narrative that we're specifically looking for. So we'd like to have a description from you on the need or opportunity that you're hoping to impact with your grant, a brief summary of your proposal plan, what activities are going to take place and how they're going to affect the stated need, your timeline of activities, and who's going to carry these activities out. As we mentioned, is it going to be staff members or volunteers? How many people do you expect to impact with this grant? This doesn't have to be an exact amount, but again, if you're thinking about this right in this scenario, right for this field, it'll be much easier to fill out a report at the end to let us know, how many people you were able to impact. And then we talked about collaborations. This is a field to describe any collaborations you have that pertain to this grant specifically. What are your metrics? How are you going to evaluate your success? And any past funding that you may have had from us through this program in the last 5 years, we'd love to have you describe, how the playing field may have changed between now and then. Summarize any results or growth or changes from the previous requests. This is kind of a way for our grant committee volunteers, if they know that you were awarded money, say last year or the year before, this is a place for you to answer the question they may have of, what did we do with the previous money? And so it kind of puts that all in one place where they don't have to go back and research through a report from 3 years ago, that kind of thing. And then the funding impact. So the funding impact relates to our interest in helping you with the success of your project. If this request is going to be used towards a match, this would be a great place to list that kind of information. If it's going to be leveraged for additional funding in some way, that's something that you would want to indicate as well. But how would receipt of this grant money impact the success of the project? You will note that there is a limited amount of space in this narrative area. And I'm just going to be transparent here. The reason for that is because often we're very passionate about our organizations and we want to describe everything that we do. And unfortunately, there's just a limited amount of time that each of our volunteers has to read through these applications. It's very difficult, for me to ask a volunteer in particular to read through 20 pages per application when they've got 50 applications to read through and they have a limited amount of time. And so we want to make sure that we're very respectful of our volunteers and also that we've asked you to be very clear about answering specifically the areas of narrative that we're interested in. Breaking into the financial information section, this is where you would upload things like your budget, etc. We are asking you to give us a bottom line dollar amount on your organization's budgeted expenses for the current fiscal year. So for whatever fiscal year 2025 falls into, we're looking for a bottom line number here on your expenses. We're also looking for a total dollar figure if you're applying for project support. So like the total cost of the project, not just the amount that you're asking for. And then uploading your files. We need the current operating budget for your organization, your end of year financial statement or audit, and then your board of directors list. I will mention here just kind of a tip that if you're using Excel in particular for your budgets, Excel doesn't just naturally default to an 8.5 by 11 page. And so a lot of times people will just upload a file and not pay any attention to how the page setup is defined. When you upload that file, our system looks at the page setup that's saved within your file. If it's not set to shrink all your columns onto one page, then what our reviewers end up looking at is multiple pages. And, they're first going to see that left side page. But if you've got this huge spreadsheet that goes out across multiple pages, the information that's pertinent may be on page 23. And so I just highly recommend that you look into the page setup on your Excel file before you upload it. Or if you're exporting an Excel file to a PDF, if you're saving it off as a PDF, the same thing applies. If you've ever done that before and then opened the PDF, you may have noticed that your Excel spreadsheet gets chopped up across multiple pages. That's how our reviewers are going to have to look at your document if you don't change the page setup. So what I usually recommend doing is going into the setting in Excel where it says to shrink all columns to one page. And that way it will all end up on a single page. It really doesn't even matter what page size that is because our reviewers will be able to zoom in on that document. Whereas if it's chopped up across multiple pages, then they have to try to figure out which page of the document the pertinent information is on. So just a little tip there about Excel, kind of make everybody's lives easier. If you are applying for a specific project support, this is where you would upload that project budget. If you're applying for general operating support, you do not need to upload anything here in this section. And then something I really haven't talked about is bids and quotes. We do have a requirement that if you are asking for funding for items or services that are $2,500 or more, that you please provide 2 bids or quotes for each item. Rather than request, bids and quotes on everything. We recognize that, items that are $2,500 or more, I guess I would say that our grant committee would just like to know that you're being good stewards and have checked to see that whatever vendor that you are hoping to use has a fair price. And the only way they can really do that is if you show some due diligence and provide like a secondary quote. So any items or services that are $2,500 or more, please provide copies of those bids or quotes. And those could be something as simple as checking on Amazon for what the Amazon price is, screenshot that and upload it here so that we can see that you checked. Now, if you have services, so if you're looking to get work done on a property or something like that, and we would also like to see that you've gotten that work bid to a second vendor. But we also recognize that it might be that there is only one possible vendor for your services. And we do recognize that, especially if, it's something that you are trying to buy locally and there's only one local vendor for it. We just need an explanation of that. So that's what this space is for you to tell us, why do you only have one bid for this? And just explain why. And we definitely take that under consideration. And any other documents that you just like to have considered, we just have a space here. It's totally optional, but if you have something you'd like to provide, there's a space to upload that file there. Okay, then Bailey, do I need to stop and ask about? Nope, she's shaking her head no. So that's great. I'll just keep moving forward. We're not right at 1 hour here, but we're almost finished. So bear with me just a little bit longer. If anyone is interested in or has a fiscal sponsorship relationship with another 501c3 organization, we do ask that you submit their financial information here. So basically the same financial information that we're asking for from you, we would also need from your fiscal sponsor. And this is just the area of the application that's completely optional for anyone who's a 501c3. Well, actually, it's not even optional. It's not even required if you're 501c3. It's only for non-501c3 organizations. So one additional bit of information that we need is we need a copy of either an MOU or a letter that's been signed by the fiscal sponsor's executive director and board president, indicating the information that's listed here. So you will need a letter to prove that you have that official fiscal sponsor relationship. And we ask for the financial statement and a list of the board of directors of your fiscal sponsor. Okay, the very last part of the application is just your electronic signature. And by filling that out, it indicates that you're certifying the statements contained are true and correct to the best of your knowledge, just like any other signature. And there are some final instructions and recommendations here. That would be mainly that if you are looking to get a one-on-one review done of your application draft, to be sure to book an appointment with me before April 11th. And there's a link here to do this. This takes you into my Microsoft Outlook calendar. and you'll see the slots that I have available during the time between, let's see, do I have those dates here? It's between March 31st and I think it's April 17th. And then I think as Bailey mentioned, if you have any further questions, we're here every day. We're happy to answer any problems that you might be having with the system or any clarifications that you might need on the questions in the application. By the way, if you are going to be doing a one-on-one review, do not submit your application until after that review is done. Okay. If you do happen to click submit, I have to back it out of the system. It's not impossible, but it's just easier. So just click save. So also, if you happen to be working on it and have to step away from it, it's a good idea to save the application. The system will save your answers, but only if you click Save Application. Okay. So as far as that goes, that is really all I have for you folks. I do want to open up, the floor if there are any last questions that anybody has or any areas you'd like to clarify. I'm happy to do that. You're welcome. You're very welcome. Thanks for taking time today to participate. I know probably used up some of your lunch hour, so I appreciate you doing that. I think it helps get us all on the same page, certainly. Okay, you're all very welcome. Thanks for your comments. Um, with that, I will go ahead and end our workshop, and maybe I'll see some of you in Palmyra tomorrow. If not, that's fine. It's pretty much the same information as what I covered today. So best of luck, and I will look for your applications. Bailey's asking, will we be sending? Oh no, she's telling you we will be sending this out via power, not PowerPoint, but it'll be a PDF file. Okay, great. Well, thanks again, everybody. Have a great afternoon, and we'll look for your applications. Bye-bye.